Sparty's back. Today I'm going to tackle hypergrav loops. If you are an aspiring Magneto player and you haven't got these down yet, they are super important for Magneto for a couple of reasons. One, because they allow him to tack on a couple of extra reps of damage, for one, to the end of most combos. They are, in a lot of cases, the most efficient thing to do, especially if there's any kind of scaling in the combo. They do the most damage in a lot of circumstances, as well as the most meter. But also, they are the most consistent thing that Magneto can do with his combos, both in terms of comboing different character heights and sizes and weights, but also in terms of the ender as well. So if you are finishing this with a hypergrav loop like this, they get held at that same height every time, and then you can do a different setup based off that, whether it be to do a side TAC at a perfect height or an up TAC at a perfect height, whatever it might be. The TAC is always the same height, or the TAC reset is always the same height, depending on what it might be. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I know there's been some hypergrav tutorials in the past, and there are some really good ones, some old ones and newer ones. I know Milky has a tutorial, I think it's about 18 months ago he released his, and Milky's is really good. He shows you a lot of different confirms going into hypergrav loops, but also slows it right down and gives you the combo notations in slow motion as you go through. It's a really good walkthrough tutorial about hypergravs. Now, the one thing I'm going to do in this and tackle it my way is I'm going to put together a series of things for you to go through, a series of steps for you to go through to take in order to understand what a hypergrav loop is, why it would fail for you, and how to correct it. So for this then, the first thing is, hypergrav is a capture state move, and it drags the opponent towards you, and depending on how you move, it will drag them upwards, left, right, down, whichever direction you are away from the character when it hits them, it will drag them in that direction, up, down, left, or right, whichever way it is. Now, the reason that's important is because if I whiff this move, I do not get to cancel any of my recovery on this, but if I hit with this move, I do, and it's important that the moment I get to cancel the animation with basically into anything, basically he just recovers instantly the moment that hypergrav hits. I just want you to go into the corner and just acknowledge how quickly he recovers from that move. It's instant. And the reason that's important is because I'm trying to drag them upwards, and I want to drag them upwards with a hypergrav, with a super jump. So the first thing for you to do, step one, is to go into training mode and just hold up after a hypergrav. There you go, step one, already done. Step two is to super jump out of that. So I want you to just instantly buffer a super jump after the hypergrav hits. And I just want you to do this 5 or 10 times until you get a feel for how quickly you can do that. Now the third step is to acknowledge that we now need to come down, after dragging them upwards, we need to come down with a heavy, like that. But not like that, because you can see from my inputs there, I have used medium and heavy for my air dash, and medium and heavy for my H at the same time. So I can do it with just medium, heavy into heavy, but there's a restriction within the game, and I can't remember off the top of my head if it's down to the way inputs work, or if it's down to actually human here, because you've got to release the heavy and press the heavy again. I think it's down to a restriction within the game, because the game realizes you've just used a heavy and it can't queue the next heavy because you've just used it. But what it means is the heavy comes out slightly slower than if you were to dash with L and M and then press heavy. So if you press L and M into heavy, the heavy comes out quicker. So you must either learn to press the L and M together manually, I do that, or alternatively get yourself a little macro in controller settings, go down to controller settings and then get yourself a macro for yourself with L and M bound to a button. Now the reason that's important is, like I said, we need to get up and then down, and we want to basically keep them as high as possible. With that height they've gained from being dragged upwards, we want to keep them as high as possible. And if I do the MH input, they end up lower than they do if I use the L and M plinked into the H input. So it's important that you do that, because otherwise you're not going to get the hypergrav loops as consistently as you would. So this is important. So what you to go and do is go into the training mode, go into the corner, and just practice this. Practice it over and over again, basically smacking the opponent, and Magneto's pretty much instantly recovered. You can hardly even see the H there. Like if I did it from up here with the MH, you sort of get it pretty low, but it's not as low is if I did this. Now, the height at which I'm dashing here is around about, you see Magneto's head height right there? That head height is around about where Magneto's feet end up. Round about where Magneto's feet end up off the super jump when I press that dash down heavy. It's like just above the peak of his normal jump height. You see that with the normal jump, I can't get it to come out in time. But if I super jump, it's pretty much just above Magneto's head. And that's important for the next step as well because, and this is ultimately where all hypergrav loops tend to fail, the reason they fail is because they are too low to hit. So they are basically too low for the hypergrav to hit. Hypergrav L has a lot of hit stun, a lot of startup, and it needs the opponent to be quite high up, like that sort of height where they're being hit above Magneto's head, in order for it to combo correctly, like that. If they are too low, it will not combo. Does just demonstrate that now. There's a good rep. But if it's too low like that, they will fall too quickly and end up hitting the ground and recovering, and you will be punishable in a lot of cases, either by a quick light or a throw, or an assist call as they tech roll out. So it's really vitally important that you learn that the reason things drop is because of a slow transition from super jump up, dash down heavy, into the stand heavy on the ground, because you let them fall too much. So if I show that again with a slow transition, you see how slow that was between the... It's too slow. So if you're seeing that, it's too slow. It's too slow. You need it to be much faster, like whoops. Like that, basically. So you are going as fast as possible. So your drill here, which is connected directly to practicing that input, makes sure to go and smack him twice in a row as fast as possible. Getting used to this timing is the biggest thing, in my opinion, that's going to help you make sure that you don't drop these loops, because the bigger the gap between that heavy and that heavy, the more chance there is that they're going to fall too far and the hypergrav is not going to connect. So that is my fourth tip. Basically, you've got to get the stand heavy to come out as soon as possible after landing, and then of course you've got plenty of time to cancel that stand heavy into the hypergrav. So you can maybe just, as you get really familiar with that input, just start doing it like this and just attacking on the end of the hypergrav on the end. So there's plenty of time from stand heavy. I think it's like 8 or 9 frames start up. There's plenty of hit stop on it just to cancel into hypergrav. It's no biggie just doing that. And once you've got that down, you then have to decide, are you going to try learn completely optimal loops straight away where you do a very close to the ground, very low dash down? Or alternatively, are you going to do the slightly slower loops to begin with and super jump a bit higher, like that, almost to the full height of super jump height, and then come down? It makes a difference to the timing, and it makes a difference to the amount of reps that you can do, and ultimately you might lose a rep here and there. Some combos you probably get around about the same amount of reps. Some combos you'll probably lose 1 rep. Say you're able to do 5 hypergrav loops, you might only get 4 if you use the slower reps, or rather jump higher and then dash down. But that is much easier to do at this sort of like starting phase. It's much easier to jump higher, drag them up higher to get a feel for it at first. But you might find it more comfortable to stay fairly low to the ground. If you've been practicing that input, you're probably good to go, to be honest. That's all it is. We're just super jumping. We're just super jumping out of that and then coming down as early as possible, basically, with that jump heavy. Just like that. Now, my 5th tip is, which direction do you super jump and which direction do you dash? Because a lot of people get confused a little bit. Do I jump up back? So do I jump up back and then do stand heavy off it? Do I go up, back, down, forwards? Do I go straight down? Do I go up, forwards? And can I go down, back? And the answer is no, not really. You don't want to go down back, because if I do a super jump up and then dash down heavy like that, the input is the same every time for down or down forwards. The H always comes out really quickly. But if I try to do that same input down back, the H doesn't come out. There is restriction with a lot of characters on the back dashes, especially down back specifically. Their back air dashes, like Dormammu's got the same thing. The H just doesn't want to come out because there is restriction on how soon you're allowed to make that. I think potentially the design idea there is to stop people running away quite as easily or freely with a H that comes out as fast. So you can, though, do it off a down dash, get that heavy to come out with the same input there. So it's really important that you acknowledge that you don't go down back ever, but you do have the freedom to go down forward and down. I just recommend basically doing air dash down. No matter which way you super jump, up forwards or up, generally speaking, those will be the two that you use. Always go straight down. I think it might end up being a frame faster or so. I'm not sure with Magneto, but I've tested with tool assistance, going in, jumping up back and jumping up forward, and the directional ones take a little bit longer to go upwards basically than the up one does. Frame wise, just a tiny little difference, but it could make the difference between you hitting that combo and you dropping it. So I fully recommend just going down and either super jump up forward or super jump up into an air dash down. Now, if you do choose to go down, one thing you need to be aware of is at a certain length of combo, look at how far away Magneto is. I started over here, but the stand heavy pushes you a tiny bit back each time, and the further away you get, the more chance there is of dropping it once you get to this sort of distance here. Now, me being an experienced Magneto player, I'm aware of this, and I will correct it by doing one up forward super jump. But I like the simplicity of just going up and down like that. It keeps me away from inputs like accidentally rolling a corner input, accidentally rolling a corner input, and maybe getting something a little bit wrong, maybe get a super jump disrupted by accident or something like that. But you can, if you want consistency's sake, do an up forward jump into an air dash down every single time. That'll keep it consistent for you no matter what. There's nothing wrong with doing that whatsoever. So I suppose the one note that you might see on this is there are benefits to letting that spacing happen naturally. So if I was to do a few reps of this, it pulls them out of the corner every time with the Hypergrav, and what that allows me to do is something like that. And you might have seen Ray do something like that, and Ray sets it up slightly differently. I think Ray tends to go for more consistent setups of, say, getting into the corner to do Hypergrav loops, and then up back is for one rep basically. And then he'll do like a cross-up jump heavy like that. So he'll do for one rep, he'll be in the corner nice and tight, and then up, back, and then down, and that allows him to get into the corner like that. So there are benefits. Once you get a little bit more advanced with your Magneto, or if your execution is that good and you've been playing other characters for a long time in this game, feel free to learn something like that. Just be aware that gradually you will get spaced out if you're using purely up and down as your directions for this. Now, the final thing that I'm going to give you here is not a tip per se on how to do the loops, but in fact, I think you should be pretty good now. I think you should have all the tools you need to learn it, but it is a tip on how to track your loops and count them. Now, for me, if I'm going to do a loop of any kind, Hypergrav loops, I count them from the first stand heavy right there. So for me, that is 1. I know I've not done anything, I've not done a loop yet, but I count that as 1. And off that specific confirm, I get 5 loops based on that counting. So I count the heavies as well. So I count on the heavies, and then the Hypergrav is like my little extra punctuation in between the heavies. So I go like this. Listen to me. So I do this confirm, 1, and then 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, and then I know I won't get any more, and I do an assist extension like that, and then go into my supers and DHC out. That's how I do it. That's how I count it. You can count it however you like. Just understand that you need to be keeping track of how many loops you get from different confirms, because that is a nice little starter, dead easy to combo into Hypergrav loops from. You might also want to consider just doing this, because that is also extremely easy, and you'll get the same 5 loops off it, slightly less damage, because you've missed out the Mag Blast, of course. Or if you are just learning Magneto a little bit, just to get yourself ready to do a combo, you might do something like that, and I think maybe I'll get 3 off this. 2, 2, 3, 3. I don't think I'll get a 4th. No, I didn't. I don't often use that as a confirm, just because it's quite simple, and you're missing out on a bit of damage, but it does let you get ready to transition into those Hypergrav loops quite nicely, that. But it will change depending on the combo that you use. With this, I get 4, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, like so. I get 4 off that. However, if I was to do those higher up loops, the slower ones, I'll show you, that's a case where you will lose a Hypergrav loop. So 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, and I won't get a 4th here, I don't think. No, it's going to whiff. So that's a case where if you are using the ones that super jump up, like that, a bit higher than the lower ones where you come down sooner, you will lose a rep basically. Now you have to be aware of different confirms and things like the fact that, say for example, the F champ B&B box dash mag blast into a flight loop like that, you get no reps there. You get no reps at the end of that, but if you did a standard flight route loop, you get one loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get one loop here because you get no more. Oh, I got two there. Maybe because I was doing them so quick. Oh, because I probably just went straight into the flight anyway. But if you drop one heavy off this, 2, 3, 4, then you definitely get two loops at the end. I won't get a third here. Don't prove me wrong again. There we go. So the third one didn't happen because I dropped a heavy off the flight loop. And transitioning from flight into hypergrav loops is probably one of the most important things you can learn. Once you have hypergrav loops down, transitioning into flight out of your into hypergrav loops out of your flight is really important. And the way it works, and Milky has a good explainer on this as well in his tutorial, I believe. The way it works is you go basically from your last heavy in flight, you do an dash down heavy or dash down forward heavy. And notice that I'm still in flight there, but if I press S, I'm instantly cancelling into the S. But because I have down forward momentum, I cancel into it. And it just because I got the momentum. Notice how the S doesn't come out, but if I've no momentum, the S does come out, and it's the fact that I have that momentum that means that I'm basically cancelling out of flight no matter how many reps I've done up here. That cancels flight immediately, and then you just got to get used to basically the way that if you do this after the S, you just got to press H into. How did I mess that up? That's embarrassing. You just got to transition out of the heavy with the S and then go straight into hypergrav like that. So this is what that looks like now. Basically, you just got to get used to that. And part of optimizing this a little bit, if you do have a flight combo that ends a little bit before the corner, let's pretend it's this one, you can actually press that last, if I just drag him out of here, you can press that last HS and then dash before the hypergrav loop. Do I have an example? Oh, I can actually do it with my throw combo. So my throw combo might look like this. 1, 2, 3. Messed it up. Wow. One more time. Oh my word, my execution is trash right now. So right before I did that extension there, you'll notice I did that, and that input, L and M into H, also applies on the ground, because if I did that, that's slower. Two medium and heavy inputs, just like in the air, slower than doing that. So that's a fast way to get that little bit of extra corner carry. If you're worried, for example, that you're not going to reach the corner, you can dash and then get closer to the corner before the hypergrav loop starts. Practice with your confirms, see what happens, and see how many loops you get from them and how you best transition into your hypergrav loops. The final thing to mention is that depending on the starter, if you hit them airborne, so I'll just get my dummy to jump here, if you hit them airborne, you might get less loops, because airborne hits add to hit stun deterioration a tiny bit more than normal hit stun deterioration does if you get them on a grounded hit. So every hit that you do on the ground is worth 5 times less technically hit stun deterioration than a hit on the air. It's only for the duration of the actual hit though, so it's just the number of hits that changes. So every time you hit them airborne like that, I think if I recall correctly, it adds 5 frames of equivalent hit stun deterioration to the timer. So if the combo's gone on 5 seconds, that's 5 times 60 frames, which is 300 frames total. But if I've hit them in with 5 jabs there, that's going to add 5 times 5 frames. We're going to add 25 frames, but if I hit them with 5 jabs on the ground, it's only going to have 5 frames total. So it's 25 frames less of time, nearly half a second less of time that it's going to save you if you've hit them on the ground with a confirm like that with 5 jabs, compared to if you hit them in the air with 5 jabs instead. So just be aware that you are basically about half a second, maybe, depending on how long your confirm was, half a second less of a combo if you are hitting them airborne, and that also applies to assists as well. So if you hit them with an assist, you just got to be aware that that's also going to be the same thing with assists. So this, normally I'd get 4 reps for. Will I get it if he's airborne? I will, because it was close enough. It was only 1 hit, so it didn't change it. But you also need to be aware of how much of a difference getting a confirm off your assist will mean. So if I get a hit with Iron Fist here, for example, I know off this confirm I'm only going to get 4 loops. 2-2, 3-3, 4-4. Another one won't work like that. Unless that hit comes directly in the corner, and I can then immediately hit them into it like this. I think I can get 5 here if I'm quick. 3-3, 4-4, 1 more, 5-5. Hey, what do you know? I know my stuff. But the same thing applies with, say, whatever assist you have. You just have to figure out how much hit stun deterioration is that going to add, how many loops is that going to ask you to cut off based on the confirm. And that's the gist. That's the gist of this entire video. If you struggle with learning any section of this, pop me a comment down below and let me know what you're finding hard, and maybe I'll try and reframe my teaching of how to do that. But also, one thing that I do like to do is to finish combos with assists. That's important. One of the benefits of Hypergrav loops that I didn't mention at the start is because it's consistent in applying your casts. Your casts assists at the end. So whatever your team is, the assist can be applied in a consistent way because the height's always going to be the same at the end. So if I do Dormammu here, I've got the same exact thing, and then I can even go into Iron Fist at the end as well and get that combo to come out at the end like that. So whatever your assists are, whatever your team is with Magneto, if you'd like me to, train up and see what sort of extension you can do with Hypergrav, I've been playing this character like, 8-9 years now. I love executing stuff with Magneto. It's really fun. And part of that is extending with assists, and there's some really nice ways to extend with a lot of assists, a lot of ways to push it even harder. So, for example, the classic extension with Dormammu is just that, like that, into that. But a more efficient way is to just push it that a little bit further. We get the Hypergrav, we get the HS off it, and you can finish your combos in more creative ways. So if you're struggling to think of a way to finish your combo with your assist, let me know what your team is down below. Let me know which assist you're looking for me to help you with, and maybe I'll do a little quick video for you and show you maybe what type of extension you could be doing out of your Hypergrav loops, just to make it that more efficient. Because the one thing that Magneto does do so well is build meter and do a lot of damage, and then be able to DHC a couple of times, basically. That's his main thing. He can build a lot of meter. Now, the final drill that I'm going to leave you with today is to practice this, to keep practicing your loops over and over again, just to get them down. Once you do have the loops and you're getting them pretty consistently, I want you to go to the corner, throw your opponent, and I want you to do 8 Hypergrav loops. 8 Hypergrav loops. Now, remember, I said I count from when my first stand heavy into Hypergrav happens. So here we go. 1, 2-2, 3-3, 4-4. Oh shit, I messed it up. My execution is trash today. 1, 2-2, 3-3, 4-4, 5-5, 6-6, 7-7, 8-8. And there we go. So there's our combo. If you go and practice that over and over again, if you get 8 loops, you are doing it as fast as possible. If you do not get 8 loops, you're doing a tiny bit too slow. You're probably doing one of the slower reps, or maybe taking a bit longer to get between your jump heavy and your stand heavy. In order to get 8 there, you need to be pretty quick. You can actually have a little bit of lenience with it. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be like TAS efficient, tool assisted, but you do need to be pretty efficient with this to get the full 8 reps. And you'll notice on the damage counter, I think that's 6, this will be 7, and is this 8? I wasn't actually counting whilst I was paying attention there. Yeah, I think that was going to be the 8th one, but I was doing it too slow whilst talking there. So that's the gist. Drill this over and over again until it becomes second nature for you. And like I say, if you have any questions whatsoever, leave a comment down below, and I'll answer them as soon as I possibly can. Otherwise, drop me a like, hit that subscribe button if you'd like more tutorials like this. If there's anything else you'd like to know how to execute, for example, sword loops, lightning loops, or anything else that characters have that I know about, I'll be completely frank with you. If you're asking me for something like Staircase or something with Viper, I don't know how to do that, but there's a lot of stuff that I do know how to do. So if there's something you're looking to learn, drop it down in the comments below, and I'll come to it as soon as I possibly can. Otherwise, I've been Sparty. You've been a pleasure. Apologies for the trash execution today. I'll have to work on that. See you guys soon. Peace.